Hi everybody, and welcome to another edition of the weekly Chirp vlog right here on the Outhousers YouTube channel, courtesy of the Outhousers.com. Once again, I am Jim Gramm, and I'm going to review some comics not only from 7/3, but some comics from 7/10. And due to the holiday, I wasn't able to do a video last week, so once again, happy 4th of July, and if you're from Canada, happy Canada Day, which was July 1st, just in case any of the American viewers didn't know what Canada Day was. And looking at some of the comics from 7/3, I picked up 4 books, and no, they weren't all Marvel. As I said in my last video, I am usually Marvel heavy, but this week only got 1 book from Marvel, and that was Daredevil, Dark Knights, the 8-part miniseries. Looking at Daredevil Dark Knights, this is part 2, as I said, of an 8-part miniseries, and in issue number 2, Daredevil continues to search for the transplant heart that is trying to get to a young girl, Hannah, in a hospital in New York City during a very bad snowstorm. And considering how good End of Days was, which is a 8-part miniseries that if you haven't read, I highly suggest you check out, this miniseries, which I thought may be kind of like the Deadpool series of miniseries, continues on with the story that End of Days set. But no, this is a completely canon miniseries with Matt Murdock still as the Man Without Fear. And I'm not really sure what this series is kind of supposed to be about. End of Days got me, and obviously the writing was great, but that series kind of made sense. Okay, Daredevil dies, then Eric's reporting what's been happening to him because he hadn't been seen. That makes sense to me. There's a point. It's moving somewhere. This one, okay, yeah, he's being a hero. That's not anything different than what he normally does, and he's trying to help out a young girl with a heart transplant. I get all that, but what's the connection? Does this girl mean anything to Daredevil? So far, any other motives by the Man Without Fear are kind of unknown, and so far I'm not really digging this miniseries so far, but I'll pick up issue 3 when it comes out, and hopefully it gets a little bit better. The next issue I picked up from July the 3rd is Green Arrow number 22, of course by DC, and I started picking up this series with number 17 when Jeff Lemire took over this series for the New 52, and I really have been liking this series, and we kind of get into the mythos of the Arrow artifacts that were kind of dropped on us in issue number 21, and we get Oliver Queen along with his new ragtag crew there searching for the artifacts, and this time they're trying to search for one of the dragons, and Komodo, who was trying to kill him in the previous issues, he is one of these 3 dragons that may hold the key to some type of ancestral legacy that Queen and not only his father has been searching after, and he does meet up with one of these other dragons. And I don't know, it's a little weird, this mythos whole thing with the arrow that Oliver Queen and his family have been drawn to picking up a bow or arrow. It's a little kind of out there considering where this series has been and where this character has been. And I don't know, I'm not so turned off that I'm not going to stop reading. I think it is intriguing. It's a different take on this character, and I'm at least going to continue reading and see kind of where Jeff Lemire is taking this kind of mythos with these artifacts and whatnot, and I think it can end up being a very interesting angle for the Green Arrow. Also from July 3rd, I was able to pick up the Green Hornet number 3 by Mark Waid, courtesy of Dynamite Entertainment, and I actually just recently started reading this series. I saw a new Green Hornet was being released, and I said, who's writing it? Boom, Mark Waid, who of course writes the current ongoing Daredevil series for Marvel, which of course has won an Eisner Award for Best Series. So that immediately piqued my interest in picking up this series, a relaunch of the Green Hornet, set currently in the 1930s in this story, not contemporary like the movie, if that's the only thing you've seen of the Green Hornet. So in this particular issue, Kato starts to get upset with Britt and doesn't really like the decisions he's making as the Green Arrow. And of course you can kind of see here on the cover there's some posters there as Britt ends up accepting a nomination to run for mayor of Chicago. So very interesting series so far. If you haven't checked it out. I highly suggest it. Your comic book store probably should have issues 1 and 2, and I think this is a very good series. And the Green Arrow, a very interesting character and very different if all you've seen of the Green Hornet is from the movies. And I think it's a lot more real take, a lot more realistic of what someone can do with the money and power that Britt Reed has. And he doesn't appear as a pushover. If you've only seen the movie, Seth Rogen's character, yeah, he's kind of comical and whatnot, and it brings a different element to the movie, and some people may like that, some people may hate that, but it always seemed like he was kind of a pushover, and Kato was the main guy. Like, Kato had to do everything. And in this series, Britt Reed can actually do some stuff. He's not just simply a pushover. He actually knows a little martial arts. He knows how to use that stun gun, and Kato obviously helps and is the brains behind a lot of things, but he doesn't bring as much today, or has to do as much, I should say, because Britt Reed can actually stand on his own 2 feet. And the last series I picked up for July the 3rd was Uber number 3 by Avatar, written by Karan Gillian. And if you haven't been reading Uber, this is an alternate take on World War II, where the Nazis are able to create a breed of super soldiers dubbed the Ubermesh, and that's the title of the series, Uber. And I don't know what it is about Nazis. I just like to see people killing Nazis, to quote Brad Pitt there from Inglourious Basterds. And in this series, definitely we get to see some Nazis being killed. And besides that, it's just a very interesting series and a alternate take if some of those Nazis experiments that they did back then kind of worked, and what that could have been for the Allies and for the war if some of these crazy Nazi experiments actually did work. And we get to see some super soldiers taking out massive people, and in this issue we get to learn the inside girl that the Allies had inside some of these crazy Nazi experiment labs. She was able to get out, get some of the information, and bring it to Winston Churchill, and it looks as though in this interpretation of World War II, the Allies, along and mainly the British, are going to start to counter the Nazis and get some super soldiers of their own. Whether or not that's going to work out, I don't know, but it's very interesting, and I really like this series. And really, after a kind of confusing Zero issue to kind of set the tone for the series and set the characters, I think this series has really picked up, and it's been a great job for one of the non-Big 2 books, and definitely a worth look at it if you haven't checked it out already. Moving on to comics from July the 10th, here is Daredevil number 28 from Marvel, written by Mark Waid, and in this issue we get to learn one of the tormentors of Matt Murdock as a kid, and he comes back to try to seek help from the Man Without Fear, courtesy of his alter ego, that being Matt Murdock, as a lawyer, to try to help him out of some problems that he has, because he's being falsely accused, and he needs Murdock's help to help him get out of this case. And we kind of learn a little bit about Matt's childhood in this, and that this particular kid, the kid that's on the cover, is the one that actually nicknamed Matt Daredevil. So it's a very interesting kind of thought-provoking issue about this kid kind of tormenting Matt, and if Matt feels any empathy for this guy now that his life's kind of in the toilet, and this guy picked on Matt as a kid. And I don't know, very interesting. I've never seen a Daredevil issue kind of take this look and really look into his childhood. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but at least within this current series, we haven't seen a lot kind of going back into that realm of the life of the Man Without Fear. Also from Marvel on July the 10th was Hawkeye number 12, written by Matt Fraction. And even though this has been my favorite series every month going out to pick up Hawkeye, I didn't particularly like issue 12, especially how good issue 11 was with Lucky, aka Pizza Dog. So in this issue, it kind of chronicles Clint Barton's brother, Barney Barton, also known as Trickshot, who has been many things throughout his mythos in the Marvel Universe. And we kind of see him meet up with Clint in a roundabout way, meeting some of the Russian mobsters, a lot of bros and a lot of seriouslies thrown in this issue, but it doesn't really show anything with Kate and her leaving with Pizza Dog, or really anything about the aftermath of Grills being killed. And I'm not sure if Barney's now going to be somewhat of a mainstay in this series, and this was just simply to set up his appearance now in the life of Clint, but I wasn't really sure what this issue was trying to tell us. And I'm really excited for the series coming up, though, even though I thought this one wasn't so great and a very great series. We got the first ever Hawkeye annual will be coming out, and then we're going to see, hopefully, more of Kate Bishop and now what she's doing on the West Coast with Lucky, aka Pizza Dog. And last but not least, from Marvel on July the 10th, my last purchase from this past week in comics was The Superior Spider-Man number 12 by Dan Slott. And we kind of get the conclusion of this RAF kind of part series that chronicles Spider-Man going up against the Spider Slayer, among other villains that are set free by the Spider Slayer after he beat them up. And we get to see him reveal to someone that he is Otto Octavius, that he is inside the body of Peter Parker, and that the Spider Slayer will not get full satisfaction if indeed he was able to take him out, because he's not truly Peter Parker. And the biggest thing besides that, the raft, Spider-Man gets that shut down and gets that turnover in his possession after kind of blackmailing Mayor Jameson into giving it to him, and so we get to see Spider Isle number 2. And this should be very intriguing to see what Dr. Octopus as Peter Parker will have planned with his new Spider Island base, formerly the Raft of S.H.I.E.L.D. And this series has been very intriguing. I think it's had its ups and downs. This past little 3-part arc with the Spider Slayer was kind of interesting, but I think it really sets the tone for what he, being Dr. Octopus, is going to do in the body of Peter Parker. And it's going to be a much darker tone to a Spider-Man comic than probably we've ever seen. And it's interesting now what he's going to do with a whole base to create all these crazy contraptions. I mean, we've already seen the spider bots, but I think we're going to even see more. And if you've seen any previews on the Outhousers.com, probably many costume changes, as well as Dan Slott likes to change up the Spider-Man outfit from the traditional red and blue. So even though this particular issue was mediocre, maybe not mediocre, but average or above, maybe slightly above average, I think what it sets, the precedent it sets of him working on Spider Island, I think is going to be very interesting, and I think may open up a lot of different avenues for Doc Ock as Spider-Man. Well, thank you for watching another edition of the weekly Chirp vlog right here on the Outhousers YouTube channel. Of course, go to Outhousers.com for all the latest stories on comic books and comic book related stuff. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Jim Gramm if you want to see updates of me and anything else I may be talking about on Twitter. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching.